Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, welcome back to the Prodcast at Two Ticks and the Dog Productions up above Dave Grohl Alley in beautiful downtown Warren, Ohio. It has been a hot summer, and this weekend is supposed to be warm again. And I think the last thing anybody wants to do, although it's fun to wash your car in the driveway, but man, I got grass to cut. I got soccer to play. My kid wants to trampoline. He wants to go to the park. He wants to do all kinds of stuff. I do not want to wash my car. When I was a kid, I used to like to do it for my dad's car because I wanted that car someday. Barry and I are going to travel down to Florida, hopefully in September, and pick that bad boy up and drive back to Ohio.
Yes.
Are we going to do that?
Oh, I'm down. Let's
all
go.
right. You got it. See, listen, I got you on tape now. I'm saying tape. I'm dating myself. I got you on SD card saying you're going to go. So.
We have to clear it with the wives first.
All right, well, there you go. See, now you hear it. I want to welcome my man Barry Berkey to the show again, back co-hosting. He'll be co-hosting the rest of the season. Super excited about that. And he's going to go maybe get a car wash over in Cortland where the new Coates Car Care is located.
Great location.
It is a great location, man. They just bang them out. They're located in 5 places around the region: Hermitage, Niles, Howland, Austintown, and of course we mentioned Cortland. And because we're all trying to social distance, they have a new app, and you can download that from the MDI Studios powered CoatesCarCare.com. If you go there, up in the right hand corner, you'll see a place to sign up for that app, and they have an app called Wash Now, and you can download single washes or sign up for their wash club, buy gift cards. You can do all kind of cool stuff, and if you do that, you just bring your phone and pull up, and they'll barcode it. You don't have to even roll your window down. Have you used that yet?
No, I have not.
I haven't either. I actually had downloaded it, but I haven't used it yet, but I'm gonna do it this weekend. If you're listening from the greater Warren, Youngstown area, and we're still in season 2. If you're listening to this into the future, I'm speaking to you future folks, 2021 and beyond. We're not giving away car washes, or maybe we still will be. But in 2020 season 2, we're giving those things away.
Car wash.
Yeah. So if you visit theprodcast.net and sign up for our giveaways, it's absolutely free. We don't sell your data or any of that other stuff. You can win. My son draws the name out of one lucky winner a week, name out of the hat, and we send you an express exterior car wash, courtesy of Coates Car Care. And, you know, if you want to get your car clean, you call Coates. If you wanted to get your clock cleaned, you called our next guest. We want to welcome to the show former middleweight, lineal, undisputed champ of the world of the middleweight division, Kelly Pavlik. Bro, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Now you already gave me an idea. That was a hell of a nickname. Kelly the Clock Cleaner.
Yeah.
I like it.
You got Ghost instead, though.
Yeah, we got Ghost. So
which
turned
is
out well.
Well, I think it was real cool. And there was only one other guy at the time that had you were the first guy that I ever knew that was Ghost, and then there was another guy that
Robert
I remember.
the Ghost Guerrera.
Okay.
He was the Ghost, and he came up shortly after me, and very cool kid. So after I got to meet him, actually I got to meet him at the International Boxing Hall of Fame a couple years ago, and he's such a cool dude that I didn't even care after that. So
you don't want to smack him around.
And we talked about it. You know we're going to have to. So
my son has the that's what his nickname when he wants that to be. We're playing soccer now. Our kids are playing. Barry and my sons play soccer, and a bunch of other kids, and he doesn't always want to go sometimes because it's been so hot. And he's not an offensive player. He's like me. He's a defensive player. He likes taking the ball away and that kind of stuff. And I said, man, you got to be like a ghost. He was like, I like that, Dad. What does that mean? I said, man, they don't see you coming, and all of a sudden you just snatch the ball away. Kelly was snatching people's lives away.
Yeah, I tell my son, I call him Casper. So
is he boxing, your son?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm eventually going to work on him a little bit on it. So,
professional record 42-2. You had almost an 81% knockout.
40-2.
40.
Yeah.
Oh, 40-2. 40-2. 42 fights.
I'll take the 42.
Yeah, man. Yeah. We're gonna give them to you.
Hell yeah.
You probably beat some guys on the street, man. That might be another.
Yep.
Might be another conversation.
Of course, in this area, though, I didn't. So,
no, right. Well, hey, if you did, we would have heard about it.
But we'll say right. TMZ.
Yeah. So what have you been up to, man? I mean, I know what you were up to in 2007 to 2010 when you were the unified WBC, WBO, and ring champion. What have you been up to lately, man, in the last couple of years?
Oh man, as I talked with you when I came in, it's I'm spread thin, and it's good. The great thing about it is I do things on my own time. I'm helping some of the young fighters out now. I own my personal gym. It's a fitness gym. We're doing great. We're over 300 members for a little tiny gym in Columbiana, Ohio. That's taken off. In the process of looking to open another fitness gym. In the process of opening a boxing gym to help out the youth, which will be part of my charitable organization too. It's going to be free for kids under 18, and eventually, hopefully, through the 501(c), however we got to set that up, turn into like a scholarship type thing, because boxers don't get scholarships much. Of course, you have some NCAA boxing. Marquette, Michigan used to be big with that, but I don't know how big they still are. So even if there is 3 other little colleges out there that do collegiate boxing, it's still not enough for the amount of boxers coming up in these kids to give them a chance, like football, like baseball or basketball. So, that's one thing that I think we want to do is try that route too eventually. I got the podcast. I have a boxing app with Billy Wild Style Lau.
From Niles. Yeah, hell yeah, man.
And he's living in Naples, Florida right now, and he has a gym down there.
Lucky dog.
Yeah, right. And he's doing great. And me and Billy, we're doing that app. It's still fairly new. We just came out last year. Went through a couple companies down in Naples, Florida. We really haven't pushed it yet. We've done some things with it. We've gone through the app optimization. But I think this fall that we're really going to make a push on it. It's a great app. We have nutrition plans, diet plans on there. We have strength and conditioning workouts, and then we have boxing where we teach. So if you're a new beginning boxer, you can learn from it. If you're just a stay-at-home mom, you can learn from it. So doing that, and there's a couple other really big things in the works right now, but we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we wrap those up pretty soon. And I think once I do that, though, a lot of other stuff will be put on hold, though.
You're a busy guy.
All over. And still find time to go home and, run around with the kids myself. So
how many kids you got? 2 kids?
I got 2 kids, 14 and 10. And, like I said, it's I kind of set my times and things like that. So I make sure that, I have enough time to hang out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, your son, the 14-year-old. I mean,
no,
do they?
My daughter's 14.
Oh, your daughter's 14.
Yep.
Okay. Well, maybe your daughter. I mean, they're at that age now where they're getting into like real. I mean, I know all these kids nowadays are like getting into competitive stuff, but they're getting that age now where they're getting into like real competitive sports. Do they have any affinity for, the poetry of boxing, or is it
no
keeping them away from that?
No. When it comes to sports and I guess I was fortunate, in the path that I chose to be in my sport, one of the best. And so by no means am I like bragging. I'm not that type, but just being honest.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm not like knocking anybody else, but, I'm not going to be the type that forces my kids into something, or that one that, like when they were 8 and playing flag football, you're not going to see me on the sidelines coaching with a clipboard screaming at 8-year-olds. I kind of let them choose, because one thing is I know kids will build resentment and things like that. So when my kids were coming up, I kind of gave them the choice to choose. Now, if they're going to play sports, you can play for that year if you don't want to play after, but you're going to finish that year, and you're going to give it your best, because it teaches structure. But as far as making sure they keep playing, I never did that. My daughter, she dabbled in sports. She's in dance right now, and she's doing very well. They travel. My son, he played baseball. He wants to play basketball next year. The one thing I do got him in that he's going to do a couple years is jiu-jitsu, and I'm going to put him in.
Nice,
yes,
right
exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put him in with wrestling, and I'm going to let him box.
To be able to defend himself.
Yes.
Yeah, right on.
I don't want him boxing for a profession. You know what I mean? I did it, and I know what it's like. if he want, I shouldn't say it like that. If he wants to, and I pray that he don't ever choose that route. You know, I don't want him being a pro boxer, but I want him doing that stuff. And like I said, even with the jiu-jitsu and wrestling, he's going to do it. He's going to do it for 4 years, or at least 4 years, if he wants to quit after that. But he's going to have to do something for a period of time where he has to work at it, you know, so he learns.
Sure.
It'll help him when he gets older.
Your daughter's 14.
Yeah.
She got the boys coming around now?
Man,
Probably not. Would you go, like, hey, I'm going to pick her, I'm going to go pick up, what's her name?
Sydney.
I'm going to go pick up Sydney. Oh, hey, I'm introducing you to my dad. And they'd be like, get the fuck, man, I'm out of here, bro.
And it's already happened.
Yeah.
And you know what? I always said I was never going to be one of them dads, right? You know, because when I was 17 going, you know, picking up, and the dads would get mad, I'm like, what an a-hole, you know? And now you see, though, it's I hear her, you know, she talks to her friends, and then they talk about, oh, he's cute. And I said, yeah, you know, F around, find out. So hands are rated E for everyone. You know, you can't call me a bully because I beat up people my age. So, but it's all kidding aside, it's true. You know, it's at that age, and it's new. It's new to me. You know, she's 14. You always get the fair warnings. I'm sure if any other parents are out there with girls, she's a sweetheart, and we were blessed. But you can still see that, you know, that age where, you know, the little attitudes and things like that are coming, and we're dealing with it. Like, you know, my sister-in-law and everybody's like, dude, who had girls, they're like, oh, she's nothing. That ain't nothing, you know. And I'm going, oh, it is something for me. But yeah, so we joke around. Like I said, my buddy Coach Leone, Jess Leone, he was originally from California. He moved here. He's been here for a while, but he's coached all over in like Columbiana County, you know, Crestview, Columbiana. And he has a son that's a year older than my daughter, and, you know, joked around like, oh yeah, maybe they hook up. And he kept like joking about that, and I said, Coach, listen. And I go, I love you, man. You're like my big brother. And I said, but I'll mess a kid up. So his son was there, right? And there's a funny story. So when Coach proceeded to tell me this too after. So like a couple of days later, he was driving his son home from a practice, and the kids were in the car, and they were like joking. They showed a picture of my daughter, and the one kid in the back's like, oh my man, she's pretty. And his son looked at him and goes, yeah, but her dad's not opposed to punching a kid in the nose. You know, they're 15, 16, yeah. So it's yeah, it's funny, but it's a trip, man. It's enjoyable.
Barry's got that to look forward to.
I have a 12-year-old.
Oh yeah.
So
we always kid about it because I say, man, you know, I can't remember what movie it was. It's they're like bank robbers or something. I think 50 Cent's in it, and the guy comes to pick up the girl, and he brings him in the room, and it's like all these criminals and shit, you know.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a good movie, too.
Yeah, and they're all looking at this kid, and you know, the kid's like wide-eyed.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So I always say to Barry or our buddy Larry.
Is that the one with the big guy, or the, what's his name? He played in the superhero movie. The one that all the ladies like. What's his name?
I don't
that's gonna bother me.
I don't know.
He played Batman in the newest. I don't know if you guys seen that either.
Ben Affleck?
Ben Affleck. Is that the one with him? Because there was one where 50 Cent and them, they were robbing Boston. Was it Boston?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, no,
that was a good one.
That's a different one.
I forget what that one was.
But I always say, like, hey, if you need me to be the, you know, I'm obviously not very large or intimidating,
yeah.
But if you need me to be a stand-in, man, I'll come and stand in. Kelly, pretty much, you're on your own, man. You know.
Yeah.
You don't need no help.
You know, that's why I try to stay in shape, too, because right now I'm only good for one punch. You know what I mean? Like, and if I don't land it, that kid may be kicking my ass.
I'm pretty sure your one punch is still, you don't ever lose the power. I mean, you still hit the bag and stuff? Or?
Yeah, that's the last thing to go on anybody.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just funny because I power lift now.
Yeah, you ain't fighting at middleweight now.
Yeah, I like eating now. I live, man. Everybody's like, you making a comeback? I was like, yeah, it's a buffet line, you know?
Yeah, and by the way, Prodders, that's not a knock on Kelly. He looks real fit, man. Yeah. He doesn't look, you're not sloppy.
I don't have to make 160 pounds no more, so.
That's what I weigh right now. I was thinking about that this morning. I'm like, man, I can't believe, like, because you're 6'2".
Yeah.
I think to myself, how did you how did you get to that weight? To be able,
Kid stayed thin.
Yeah.
And then you get in the habit of it. Even in between fights, I would really only go up to 173.
Yeah.
So 13 pounds, I know it seems like a lot, but it wasn't, because I still look super thin at 6'2". But it was a tough thing to do. I mean, it played a role in a lot of things. I'm sure we'll probably eventually tap on that. But it was hard.
Well, it's funny because the first time we ever met was at Bob Hagen's, what was supposed to be Bob Hagen's victory party.
I do remember that, yeah.
And it was a fucking funeral.
Yeah, it was.
Bobby got beat, and we're sitting there BSing. I don't remember, I'm sure you've met a ton of people, and I remember two things: the word derelict. Okay, we just were calling Kelly. Kind of introduced that word to me.
That came from another Trumbull County person too. That word, because he used to say it all the time. I knew what derelict was. I knew the meaning of it, but he just kept saying it, and it just stuck in all over our heads. But he was a buddy of mine, Zach Barris. He actually has a practice here in Portland. That's who. He was always saying that word. Yeah,
well, we would say I don't know who we were talking about. Like, man, look at this derelict over here. Of course, we were in downtown Youngstown, and I never forget this, man. And we were BSing, and you had just this because this was in 2005, I think, and then you had just won the NABF title against what was the guy's name?
Zuniga. Ponencio.
Yeah, right. And Kelly, I'll never forget this. We talked about this on episode 39 with Kelly Pavlik. You had said, and I had heard of you. I'd grown up around boxing, and my grandfather was a boxer. I used to box with Rusty Rosenberger and all that stuff. Never in the same, never just dicking around, sparring and shit and having fun. So I followed the sport from a long time, and of course, for the prodders out there that are from outside of the area, Youngstown, Ohio, per capita, we believe, has more world title holders than anywhere in the rest of the country. 5 of you, Kelly being the last one. You had Mancini, Aurora, Greg Richardson, and Jeff Lampkin, who I'm trying to get on the show. I've been talking to him a little bit, and you, and we're having a good time. We're at this party, and that was a great fight. You're hearing all this buzz. There's all this buzz, and I hadn't seen you fight yet, but I'd heard of you, and you had said this. You said one day, and we're romanticizing, man, and you said, one day I'm going to be the middleweight champion of the world, and I'm going to take this city and lift this whole city up on my back. And I remember thinking at the time, I fucking love this dude. Like, that's the kind of, inspirational shit people need to hear, right? Because it wasn't like, I'm going to be the middleweight champ, and I'm going to go buy a big mansion in California or, any of this other shit. You were like, I'm going to lift this whole city. And for a period of time, you did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You really did. I mean, it was amazing to watch. And I saw you live a couple times. I saw you, of course, at the what was then called the Chevy Center. Now it's the Cavelli Center. Totally. And we went and saw you fight Gary Lockett in Atlantic City. And I told you that story after the fight at the after party. We were having some drinks and having a good time. I said, you remember that? And you said, yeah, but I don't know if you did. But I never forgot that, man. I never forgot that phrase, I'm going to lift this whole city up, man. And that's the kind of guy you are, which is cool. I love to hear that.
Well, when you mention Atlantic City, you have to understand there's 10 million stories.
I'm sure,
that people telling me about it. And none of them are they're good, but they don't represent Youngstown well, from what the fans are saying. It was they were out there for a fun reason too.
Sure. But you never forgot that either, because now I see you're talking about this 501c3 and you're mentoring these kids, and to kind of spin that back for a second, did boxing keep you out of trouble? And is that kind of the purpose of kind of mentoring these kids, to get them into something to keep them off the streets, or to keep them from getting into trouble, keep them busy?
I don't know if boxing, I got to give credit where credit is due. I had fantastic parents. For some of the things, that eventually ended up happening, speaking of trouble, but even towards the end of my career and after I retired, a lot of it was petty stuff. So I don't count that. I mean, if I was regular person without the name behind me,
Oh shit!
you
yeah.
know, it would those were never.
No one even heard about it.
Never even had a cop come to the house for
No,
it. You know,
me and him did shit
Yeah.
2 days ago that was worse than shit that you
I don't
did.
know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, like, think about it: BB gun, 4-wheeler,
Right.
and with my buddy messing around. But so with that being said, growing up, you know, I had strict parents, but not strict to, like, you know, when you came home and if you touched something, you know, they smack your hand with a ruler. They were just good parents, great parents. And so I learned, you know, and even growing up when I was boxing and at the age of like 16, 17, when a lot of your friends were like getting their license and going to do things, I had certain friends, not that they were bad, but, you know, they just kind of were a little more wild or just free going. And I would be with them and I would actually get worried that I was, you know, would get in trouble for something, or not by just because I didn't want to get in trouble, but it's because I knew what my parents, how they raised me. You know what I mean? As I got older, you know, and you become a world champion or you're ranked in the world as a fighter, you know, you start loosening up a little bit and you can't get grounded no more. So, you know, things are what they are. But, you know, so keeping me out of trouble, who knows? The reason why I say that again also is I had 2 older brothers that, you know, stayed out of trouble for the most part. They didn't do anything wrong, and they were 6 and 4 years older than me, so they already had a head start without being in, you know, trouble. And so me coming up, I probably would have been around the same thing, you know, or I'd probably have been working or finding some work or, you know, whatever else I may have done. I probably would have played more sports. I would have probably played football, basketball. So boxing, to a point, do I think it kept me out of trouble? Yeah, because I spent a lot of time with it, and I still played a couple other sports. But you know, it's just hard to say because of my parents. Like, you know, they did a very good job.
Your brothers kind of got you into boxing, right? I mean, you kind of followed in the gym kind of deal.
And they never really fought. My brother Ricky, excuse me. My brother Ricky had a couple amateur fights. My brother Michael, he just went to box, and there was a whole bunch of kind of things that got me into boxing. You know, growing up, I'm 38, so I was pretty much an 80s kid. And, you know, karate movies were huge. Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and Bruce Lee and No Retreat, No Surrender.
Kumite.
Yeah, Kumite. So you watch those, and I used to be flying around the damn house throwing kicks and shit all the time, you know. And, and there was a little house on the south side of Youngstown. I mean, they're small homes. And then I had a buddy who actually just moved back home. He retired from the service, 23 years. And he lived right across the street. He was about 5 years older than me, so more my older brother's age. But his dad was an older guy who fought back actually in the 40s, you know, and they had the old gloves. And I remember us going right over his house, and we'd be in the backyard, and we'd take the old cooking timer and put it on 3 minutes and just beat the shit out of each other with those gloves on, you know. And I was young, and I would go home and I'd have like little blood stains on my lip and from my nose, and I wouldn't have got in trouble if I said I was playing backyard football and the game got a little rough, but I would have got in trouble if I said, or we all would have got in trouble if I said, yeah, you know, Michael and Ricky beat the shit out of me in the backyard with the gloves on. Then you know, we all would have got in trouble. Yeah. So you kind of had to try to hide that, and that was a big part of it. I kind of just, I guess, a rough kid, you know, from Youngstown. I took martial arts. Standard martial arts like karate and taekwondo. Nothing against it, not knocking it, but not enough action for me.
Right, a lot of set forms.
Yeah, form. And then on top of that, I never forget, you know, how much they wanted for a gi, and that was crazy.
You should see how much they want now.
I know, you know, and for me being a kid, it was hard at that point. So yeah, that's how I ended up getting into it. They took me to the boxing gym. My mom and dad was hoping that, you know, after I got my first butt whipping, that I wouldn't want to do it no more. And that happened. I got my first butt whipping the very first time. And the next day I came home from school. I went to the bedroom, came back out with a bag with my clothes in it. My dad goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm going back to the gym to kick that kid's ass." And I didn't spar him the next day. It was a couple of weeks later. And I did get the better of him, you know, the following time.
Did you go to Jack's place the first time? You went to Southside the first time? Yeah.
So another great story with that being said, one that a lot of people don't know, and I never really was asked a question about it was my mom took me to go sign up, and Jack wasn't there that day. Actually, nobody was in the gym. The only person that was in the gym was Harry Arroyo.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't know who Harry Arroyo was. Like, before I started boxing, I watched fights, but it was like Mike Tyson. Like, I remember crying when Mike Tyson got knocked out because I was a huge fan of Mike Tyson. And, so that was like the gist of me watching boxing. And my mom took me to the gym, and Harry was in there, and, man, he's such an awesome guy.
Yeah.
Harry Arroyo is just... He's to this day, like, I'm still like close. Like, when I see Harry, I kind of like naturally just flock over to him and want to be by Harry. You know what I mean? That's the type of guy he is. And he was jump roping, and Harry's kind of a clown. He's always joking. And we talked to him. He said hi. Anyways, we left. He's like, Jack, come back tomorrow. Jack will be here. So we leave, and we get into the car. My mom goes, do you know who that was? Big hands. My mom goes, you know who that was? And I was like, no, who was that? She's like, that was the IBF lightweight champ of the world. Like, she even remember like what belt he held,
Yeah.
And that was a pretty neat experience right there for, like, I mean, if you go back and you think about it, nobody's in the gym but one person who was retired, don't fight no more. And if you want to talk about maybe destiny or something like that, I guess, if you look at it that way, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
What a special experience, man. I mean, you went on to fight with Southside. So for, again, prodders out there not from the area, or you're listening from overseas or whatever, we're talking about Jack Lowe, Southside Boxing in Youngstown. And you ended up fighting in the Junior Olympics. You almost made the Olympic team. And then you were Golden Gloves champ. And then you turned pro, talking about playing sports and stuff. I mean, we were playing high school sports. You turned pro at 17 or 18 years old. I mean, you were young.
I signed a contract at 17.
Okay.
And then, I fought 2 months later, which would have left it at, I think I signed a contract in March, end of March. They're all within a month of each other. So I might have been 18. My birthday is April 5th, but I think I was 17. I know it was March that I signed the contract with Top Rank. Then I made my pro debut June 16th of 2000. And because just last month, I put the, what is the date? Actually, 1 month ago was exactly 20 years ago I made my pro debut.
No shit.
Yeah, June 16th, 2000 in Indio, California. And I put that post up on, social media and Facebook. It's scary how fast time goes. I mean, to think 20 years ago. But, so a month after being out of high school, I made my pro debut. Wasn't picked to be on ESPN2, but we got on ESPN2.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it was pretty cool. I was a swing belt, and, we made it. So it was nice.
How'd you do? Smashed him?
Smashed him, third round knockout.
Yeah.
The kid was previously trained by Tyson's trainer, one of Tyson's trainers, and you're nervous, man. You're going into a fight like that. It was outdoors in Palm Springs, 116, and the referees, they should have never been allowed to do what they did. I mean, they came up before the fight and kind of like scared the shit out of you. Like, hey, by the second round, you might start getting like heat blisters on your feet because it was so hot. The sun was beating down on the ring. And so now you're thinking about that, and in your head, you're making your pro debut. You might be on TV, which is weird. And even if you're not on TV, live TV, you got people in the corners with big cameras that, you're never used to that. And it was neat, fighting outside for the first time in my life. It was pretty, the nerves were going, but it was nice. It was a good experience.
Well, then, as you get into all that stuff, and I want to kind of I'll jump around, but
go ahead.
That fear thing, man, that's always something that's really interesting to me. I read some books, and again, when you're talking about martial arts and stuff like that, so I'll do some jiu-jitsu. I've been training jiu-jitsu for 5 years. I've done some different martial arts and been in the ring, but not obviously the same level. When we spar, it's Gracie jiu-jitsu. Yeah. We glove it up, put the mouthpiece in, we smash each other a little bit. We're not trying to hurt each other, but the stuff that you train on versus getting in, and you would always, I would say this as a kid, I'd be watching fights, I'd be like, man, why doesn't this guy do X, Y, Z? Like, why doesn't he step back and check hook this guy? Like, the guy's coming in, or he's stepping to the left. Like, you always thinking these things like rational thoughts. But even, this is just from my very minimal level, we spar on Fridays, and you get in there and you know the shit. I'm a purple belt. I mean, not that that's, but you at this level, by the time you get to this, you know all these different moves, and I had sparred in the past and all this other stuff. So you have a bit of a calm to you. But once you get in there, your fucking brain, for whatever happens, something else takes over. And you can't really rationalize, right? Mm-hmm. So I've been reading this book. It's called Why We Fight. Anybody out there that's into fight psychology, it's by a guy named Josh Rosenblatt. And he talks about this in the fight. In the book. And he talks about in a fight or flight, you've got two parts of your brain. You got your amygdala and you got your prefrontal cortex. And your amygdala is the thing that kind of is like the old school brain, and your prefrontal cortex is that part of your front of your brain where you're like your writing, your language, and your tactician shit, your fine motor skills. Okay, I see this guy's coming in. I'm gonna step back and check hook him, right? But when you get in the ring and the shit starts happening, your amygdala takes over. And you don't do that. Sometimes you're just flailing around, and I notice that in sparring just myself.
Well, you're going to give me a lot of things, and I'm probably going to lose track of what I'm going to say on this. Minus the terminology that you just used, because I don't know what the hell you just said.
Me either. I'm with you.
But I could break it down in like real life situations.
Yes, Yes.
And that's a great point you just brought up, because one part that touches on what you're saying is something that I just, on my fight page for the podcast that we were just talking about, from one of my guys who helps out with the podcast on the fight page. So with that being said, we're going to go into sparring and fights, okay? And then we're going to go into self-defense, teaching a kid, whether it be martial arts, and I may piss some people off that are in like karate, and then we're going to get into all that on this, but I'm going to exactly what you were talking about, and then I'm also going to call BS on people who say that they don't get nervous, or I don't want to use the term scared,
right?
But even fighters, any fighter, I don't care if it's a world champion. I don't care if Julio Cesar Chavez says that he never got nervous. I'm going to call bullshit on that because it's human nature, especially on fight night. So we'll start off with sparring, where I was talking about with the guy that contributes to the page. He's a good friend of mine. He's a cool dude, smart. But he came up from a boxing family in New York, big people too. But he never fought pro, and he didn't have a big amateur career at all. And they were talking about Edwin Valero, okay, who was an unbelievable fighter. He died too young, rest in peace, sad. But he was like 20-0 or 19-0 with 19 or 20 knockouts. Crazy power. They were talking about, and they were like, yeah, but in sparring, they were talking about him fighting Mayweather. And a lot of people were saying, well, we'll never know because Valero never fought anybody. He never fought at a high level. And so how can you say that he would beat Floyd Mayweather at 130? And this kid Damon he proceeded on to say, well, he sparred and he used to beat up Eric Morales and a couple pros in the gym. And to me, that holds no weight, okay? Because you got guys that got a little better or less than a 500 professional record, or sometimes they're called professional sparring partners. You got guys who might be 23 and 34 in their career and could go in and spar and give Floyd Mayweather or Vasyl Lomachenko a hard time, okay, like being their ass. Mm-hmm. You got guys that are professional sparring partners. When you're sparring in a camp, you usually have 3 days a week that you're sparring, numerous rounds, and sometimes you got different sparring partners. One might come in at the beginning, and then you might get a guy while you're kind of tired 4 rounds into it with 16-ounce gloves on that comes in and jumps in your ass. Excuse my language to your mom too if she listens. Okay. He's not swearing, I promise.
She listens. She's gonna know.
So it's a different, and it's a whole different ballgame. Secondly, when you're sparring, you got 16-ounce gloves on. Sometimes I used to wear 18 because of my hands. You have a headgear. It's work. You don't have 12,000 people in the arena. Everything about it is totally different. You cannot, and I know, like, yes, you spar because it does keep your timing and everything else. It keeps you sharp. But even then, if you go into that, sometimes sparring don't prevent ring rust. okay? Because you see guys who haven't fought in 2 years, and they go through training camp 2 months, 3 months. They may spar 200 rounds of camp, but when they get in a fight, they look rusty because it's a totally different ball game. Everything about it is different, and you can't argue with somebody who's been there. Just like even amateur boxing is 2 different ball games, that and pro boxing. So, those are all a little bit of different things. But going back to being nervous, you get nervous in every fight.
No matter how prepared you are.
Yeah, no matter how prepared. You're nervous. I mean, you're getting ready to go perform. With the other part of it, as far as training and the part of the different parts of the head, how it works, self-defense, sometimes putting kids into a self-defense could be worse than not doing it, okay, because it gives them that false sense of confidence.
Right.
And it takes away, if you do it the wrong way or at the beginning, and it kind of takes away from the natural way because they're going to be thinking of everything they learned, but they can't implement it because they never did it in a situation, a fighting situation. Okay?
Right.
So with that being said, you get a kid and you want to put him in self-defense, and he has not done anything. Though it's like his 3rd week or even 3rd month doing karate. So we know a lot of karate learning, especially in this area. When you get over to some Asian countries, I'm sure it's a little more aggressive and full out. But here with some of the studios, a lot of it's choreographed, and you work on things. If somebody throws a punch this way, you block it this way. Well, unfortunately, in a street fight or any other thing, that you're not getting that.
Yeah.
And poor little Sean is going to be looking for that little punch down the middle, but he's not getting it. Why I think boxing is one of the best self-defense, and people will knock it. I'm not saying because I do it. I mean, my God, I got my son in jiu-jitsu and wrestling because I think that that's very important, and one of the biggest things in self-defense is to learn how to fight on the ground.
Sure.
But when you go into that, you got to learn, okay, it's kind of like being a baseball player. You could go swing and perfect your swing and swing 10,000 times a day. But if you ain't got a 90-mile-an-hour fastball coming in, or a 70-mile-an-hour, or even a 50-mile-an-hour, and a 6-inch curveball, a drop on a curveball coming in, you're not going to hit that. And when you do swing at that ball, your swing's not going to be as nice as it was, 20 minutes ago.
Right.
Same in boxing and self-defense classes. The only way a kid really learns is by when you show him everything that he does, and then he goes into sparring, okay, like a fight, but in a gym. And the first time, he's not going to learn. The second time, he's not going to learn. But a handful of times into it where he knows what it feels like to get hit, and you know that he don't get shell-shocked or cover up, and he knows how to deal with a hit, and then everything kind of starts slowing down a little bit. Mm-hmm. It slows down a little bit. And he could start putting to use some of the things that he learned, and he could work on that. And then it's a period of time that it goes that way. And that's how all the stuff that you learned, you eventually work on. Just like I screwed around with jiu-jitsu for a little bit, and my son does. They go through a period of time, and to me it's boring, but you have to pay attention of moves that you learn. And then usually at the end of learning all those, you roll. And when you roll, I'm sitting there getting bent like a pretzel trying to remember the 4 moves that I learned, and I'm kind of like, hey man, go slow motion so I could grab your arm or something. But again, how you get good at that, how you be, and this way more than me, how you become a purple belt, right? You go in phases, and you got to keep going up.
Keep doing it, yeah.
And experience. Your brain has to be able to adapt to that. You got to be able to get hit in the nose and feel the pain and learn how to hide it. You got to get hit in the head and be rocked and like smell stuff that you never smelt in your lifetime. But also come right back down to it and know what you got to do next, or know what you got to do without panicking, without covering up, and be able to use the tools that you learned every day in training, and what you're going to learn after you're done sparring. So that comes with experience. It comes with time. The worst thing is when people get into self-defense classes, whether it be martial arts. Boxing is a martial. It's sweet science. It's a martial art. going into the gym sometimes and just letting your kid hit the bag could be the worst thing for him. If you're going to put your kid in for self-defense, you got to let him come home with a couple bloody noses, because first of all, you're going to see the first time he gets hit, is he made for it? Because a combat fighter is not a bad thing when I say this, but we're born different.
I agree.
You know, the normal person don't go and do that for a living and like it. And what's crazy too is a normal person don't jump out of an airplane either. So you may get a guy that jumps out of airplanes or goes and wrestles alligators, but you tell him that he has to go in a ring and spar Mike Tyson, he's going to tell you you're crazy. And you get a guy who goes and spars Mike Tyson, you tell him to go jump out of an airplane or wrestle a crocodile, and he's going to tell you you're crazy. So, you know, it is what it is, but getting in there, sparring, getting hit, learning how to use everything that you've been taught, that's one way of it. And moving on to fights and pros, yeah, that's a different ball game too. You know, it's all, as you were mentioning, how it all works up in here. And I'm sure the terminology, that's what really goes on, the process of it. But from my standpoint, I could just explain through experience how that is. Sparring to fights at a high level, totally different. Yeah, you learn in sparring, you stay sharp, but you really learn from the fights themselves also. Starting off from not doing anything to going into sparring to learn how to use and put together during the heat of the moment and during combat, that's different too. So, you know, but all of it comes with experience. You know, your second, third pro fight, they're going to go fast. Boom, boom. Your sixth pro fight, you're going to start seeing things start slowing down a little bit, and the fights are going to seem like they're taking a little bit longer. Then you get into 20 and 30 pro fights, and now, you know, the pace is moving slower, and you're able to just break down more of what's going on because it comes with experience. You know what I mean? So
building muscle memory.
That is, and I believe the brain, that's what it picks up on. Like, okay, I'm used to this, and you learn. Like, hey, listen, I gotta quit being so anxious. I gotta quit being so jumpy. Let me slow down, break it down. I got, you know, this is only the third round. I got 6 more rounds. I got 7 more rounds. You know what I mean? 9 more rounds. You learn that, and you talk yourself into that, and then the fights and the training. That's when it comes into help. You know, comes into play.
When you fought, this is when I knew. Because it wasn't in Youngstown at Hagen's thing, right? Although I was like, I believed it. I believed what you said, but I was like, man, I love this dude because he's going to do this. But I didn't believe it until you went and fought Colombian-born and bred Edison Miranda, who was like a world killer, man, right? And I don't know what the odds were on that fight.
That was upset.
I think it was. I don't remember. I mean, I think we put money on it, but it was like we watched that fight, man, and it was they talk about war of attrition. It was a war of attrition, but and I think they said this after the fight. You may have said it or someone else may have said it after the fight. It was so, I think a lot of fight people don't understand. I think it's 2 guys that get in there, whoever's the strongest and fastest and who's got heart, and you punch the guy until he's knocked out. But there's so much brainiac shit that's going on there. Mm-hmm. And you walked this dude backwards, and you knew he couldn't fight. I think we watched it with my grandfather.
Yeah.
And he said it must have been like 3 or 4 rounds. I think you stopped him in the 7th or 8th or something like that. Mm-hmm. I was like 3 or 4 rounds in, and he said, Pavlik said, you were already kind of beating him anyways, but he was still trading. He says, he's going to beat this guy. And I says, why do you think that? He says, because Miranda can't fight moving backwards. He can't fire off his back foot. And then I kept watching it, and sure as shit, man. And, you dropped him with the right hand in one of the rounds, and Steve Smoger was the ref. And he got up, and the mouthpiece came out, and then they were fucking rinsing the mouthpiece off. He must have gave him 20 seconds on the side to kind of recover.
Easy.
Yeah. Larry Merchant was mad about that. He was like, and I got mad after because I love Steve Smoger. But Larry Merchant goes, he's giving him too much time. I can't stand when referee. I remember that to this day how he said that.
Were you thinking that during the fight?
No. You know, at that point.
Are you aware of the time of what's happening?
Yeah. And I knew the fight was over. I seen it around before, so of course you want it to be over at that point because especially a guy like Miranda, anything he throws could knock you out.
He hit hard?
Oh my God!
Yeah. He looked dangerous.
By far the hardest puncher I've ever fought. real quick, sliding off, but still kind of on the same topic. I was just talking with my fighter earlier today, Vic Tony, how different people from different regions of the world, how you fight how you approach them. You fight a Cuban or a Colombian or a guy from Africa or Mexican or even, a guy from the UK, United States. They're all different, Eastern Europeans. Everybody has their own style from their region. But I could tell you this, I fought one Colombian when I won the NABF in 2005, Florencio Zuniga.
Yeah.
They hit. No matter who you fight from Colombia, them guys just hit. And what I mean by that is they could throw a punch that don't look hard or that gets coming fast and it hits you in the shoulder, and you could carry that punch for 2 more rounds. It's just one of those dumps. I don't know, like from playing sports.
Oh, yeah.
Like you hear about a guy who could hit or that he's strong. And you go in and, like, you play a couple games with guys and you usually get the better of them. But this guy, for some reason, like, as soon as he puts his arm out and hits you, you could just feel, damn, this guy's strong, That was Edison Miranda. He just hit you with little punches and they hurt. And our game plan for that fight, see, most of the fights, I started getting, as my career went on, I was a really smooth boxer in the amateurs and even early on in my pro career. But as the knockouts kept coming and you start getting to 21-0 with 21 knockouts or 20 knockouts, you kind of just get in that habit like up here. And the way that you're trained on top of that is like 1-1-2 to just back everybody up, pure brute strength. So I would start, like, even for the Taylor fight and fights like that, I would go out on my own, like up at the St. Matthias to school in my backyard, and I would work on athleticism. I still did the tire flip and things like that. And times are different too. Like, this is a big argument that's been on the show, and I'm sure maybe if I bring this up, we could have a quick little convo on it. But everything gets better in time, as we've seen. And just like athletes have gotten better, faster, stronger, the sports science has evolved too, and equipment. So 15 years ago, when I was at my prime, everything was like, oh, man, we got to be strong, like Rocky IV. Let's go back to the old school and just flip tires and push trucks. And it helped. I'm not knocking it. But there was a lot of things like now where we're starting to learn fast twitch muscle and explosion, which creates strength as well, but speed. And I think you see these NFL players today where some people say that they're soft today, and they're not. You got 6'6", 245-pound linebackers that don't have hardly any pads on, and they got shoulder pads that are the size of the kickers, and they run a 4.40. It's crazy. So I would go up to the school and work on my athleticism, because in the gym we didn't work on that much. It was sparring was back 'em up for the most part. But the one fight where that worked, where the just back 'em up, and that was our game plan, was the Edison Miranda. Edison Miranda was dangerous. If you moved around on him, he could have caught you with a punch. He just threw from different angles and all over the place. So trying to move around on Edison Miranda was dangerous. We broke down film. Backing Edison Miranda up was the best way to go. So for me, my theory going into that fight, and you're right, I was the underdog. I remember at the press conference going, am I fighting tomorrow night? Because Edison Miranda was calling out Jermaine Taylor after he whooped my ass. And Jermaine Taylor, when he got up to the podium for his fight with Spinks, was talking about fighting Edison Miranda. And I looked at my dad and trainer, and I was like, am I fighting tomorrow night? Nobody was giving me a chance in that. And here I was with an unbelievable record, but with knockouts. And I told everybody, I said, you guys keep talking about Edison Miranda's power. I go, you guys got to worry about mine. You got to worry about my strength and my power. And plus, on top of that, I average high 80s to 90-some punches around.
Right.
Which is, I think right now I'm not sure where I rank at as far as punches per round average by a middleweight. So that was the big thing going into that fight was, we were the underdog, and we knew that we had to put the bulletproof vest on. We were going to take bombs, but we got to see how many of ours that he could take, and back him up, and that's what it came down to.
Well, when he got up, and Smoker was like in the corner, and I remember that, and you're saying that like Larry Merchant was probably like bitching or something. Yeah. And I was like, man, they're giving this dude too much. He's got too much time. He's recovering, And then I think you ended up finishing him. I always remember
the next round.
Yeah, but I always remember you finishing guys with the right hand, like your straight right was like, and you kind of, when you threw it, you kind of like it kind of popped out there and kind of boom, like it had like a snap to it. It was a real thing. I'm nerding out a little bit, but it was like a real thing of beauty. When you finished Miranda, I think you finished him with a left hook, but that might have been the punch that ended up sending him to the canvas. But talking about your punch output, you must have thrown, 15 punches in a flurry before that left hook landed, and it was a great fight. And I remember when we watched that fight afterwards, because did Taylor fight on the same card?
Yeah,
Corey Spinks?
Taylor,
okay.
Yeah, that was me and Miranda were the co-main event.
Okay.
And Taylor was the main event.
That's right. So. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, if he gets his shot, he's going to beat Jermaine Taylor. Even though, and Taylor was, no disrespect to him, not that I'll ever see him, but no disrespect to him. He was a great athlete, and he beat B-Hop twice. He beat like
absolutely,
a lot of great guys.
Taylor took shit for the fights. Like when our fight got made, in the countdown to the fight, you heard Jermaine Taylor kind of like rambling on about how everybody's disrespecting him in Arkansas, and I felt his pain. I mean, that's the way it is. But Jermaine Taylor fought some guys. Let's break that down too. And I'm not saying this to give myself more credit.
I'm saying it to give you credit because he fought world beaters.
Oh, exactly.
He beat Winky, right?
And let's break. So let's get to that. So people were, and this one with boxing, people will piss them off. He fought guys that were junior middleweights coming up to middleweight. Yes, they were smaller, but he fought a guy like Kasim Uma who averaged 90 punches around. Was a real awkward style. Just a guy to make you look ugly, no matter who you were. Kasim Uma was just that type of fighter, and Jermaine beat him. No, was it pretty? No, but not many people would beat Kasim Uma looking pretty. He fought Winky Wright. Winky Wright is a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And with Winky White's style, Winky Wright could be 78 years old, and you're going to have a hard time hitting him. You know what I mean? It's just that's his style. Everybody busted Jermaine's chops on that, but nobody gave guys, just let's say like Hagler, hell, for fighting a lightweight.
Right.
And Roberto Duran. Let's call Bluebird Blue. Roberto Duran was a lightweight. He won a world title. Roberto Duran didn't start his career at 135. Okay, and then move up.
Right.
Roberto Duran established his name at lightweight, 135, and then ballooned up to middleweight. Nobody gave guys like Hagler trouble when he fought Hearns, who was a welterweight, and Sugar Ray Leonard, who was a welterweight. So what I'm saying is, as time goes on, it seems like the guys today get less respect. But Jermaine fought guys that made him look bad. Okay, and they would make a lot of people look bad. And I knew that going into that fight. That did not give me any that was not the part that gave me confidence, was saying, oh, Jermaine Taylor struggled with Winky Wright, or he struggled with Kasim Uma. He beat a guy who was the man. He beat Hopkins twice. That goes to show you right there. So going into the Jermaine fight, that was a huge fight, and Jermaine never ran into anything like that. He never ran into somebody like me, just like Edison Miranda was not prepared for what he was facing. Now, let's be honest, a lot of guys, they may lose, and it could be a controversial fight. But these guys weren't losing. They were getting knocked out, and that was the big difference in that. So,
how did you feel going into it? Were you confident, or were you more nervous after the Edison Miranda fight and you smashed him? It was that was a great. I watched that fight probably 2 months ago. But after that, did you have confidence to fight Taylor, knowing that he beat guys like Winky and B-Hop and Corey Spinks and guys like that, or were you more like, because you were an underdog in that fight too?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's weird, and this is another one, and I wish I had a terminology like you have. Determined, you know what I mean? It's one of them things. Like when I put my mind to stuff, even like with my gym, I have a gym. And it's not knocking Columbiana, but Columbiana is a small little city, but I got to make sure my gym is the best or one of the best. Everything I do, is short-lived. I go on, and once I accomplish it, I'm kind of like over it. But during that period before I conquer it, I'm all about it. It's like an obsession. With Jermaine Taylor, The Miranda, yeah, it gave me a little confidence because Miranda was the Godzilla of the weight class at that time. You know, people soon forget, but he was. I mean, everything everybody talked about. I mean, I had good friends that were like, "You're fighting Miranda? Oh man, you know, I feel bad for you." I'm like, "Thanks, man. You know, I appreciate that, buddy. That's how I feel too." You know, but yeah, I was still nervous. So as far as my nerves and worrying about it or being concerned, it was no different than how I felt for Zartucci or Miranda. I went into it the same way. I was confident. You know, my thing was, everybody's thing was Jermaine's a big, fast, gifted athlete. And my thing was, well, I'm gifted too. You know, and you're not knocking guys out that are top contenders, you know, or prospects. You're not just knocking them out by being an average guy. You know, you got to have speed to hit these top guys. So I was on a warpath, and Jermaine was in my way, and that's how I played it. Nervous, hell yeah. In the back of my mind, do I always, as a fighter, do you play the worst case scenario or what the worst things that could happen in the fight? Yeah, it goes through your mind, but you know, I think it should in every fighter's mind. So that point's there and that's in their head, and they know that stuff could happen during a fight. But also they still have that other side of their brain where the confidence is there, and they know that they trained hard enough and that they're ready for that fight. And that was the case with Jermaine Taylor. Like, you know, it took me 7 years to get there. That's a long time as being a prospect signed by Top Rank, by a big-time promotional company. So it was like all the hard work for that moment. And I think that's one of the biggest things that got me through the second round was that as well. You know, I got dropped. It was the equilibrium shot. With the equilibrium shot, you're there mentally. You know, your legs just go.
Oh, yeah.
And
you look like rubber, man.
Yeah, but I could pinpoint who was screaming in the stands. So I was there mentally, but, you know, the one thing that kept going through my head was, you came too far, you know, and I was confident. In that second round, I was really, really confident because I won the first round, and I felt like it was fairly easy. I was winning the beginning part of that second round, outboxing him until I got caught. So, I mean, I was confident. I remember, like, if I could just get up, survive this round, this fight's mine, you know. And then when I really knew I had that fight was after the third round, because I got dropped. I came back out in the third round, and I threw 99 punches and beat the crap out of him, put him in the corner, and that's where I know, like, I kind of like sucked the soul out of him.
Yeah. He probably was like, I threw everything at this dude, and he's still coming back.
And this dude just comes back, and he's throwing 99 punches, like, I'm done. And so I knew there, and again, that was from hard work. You know, the hard work is the biggest thing too.
Had you ever been dropped before up until that point?
Yeah, from the first Colombian I fought in Zuniga.
Oh, Zuniga, yeah.
The NABF title fight, the first round, he hit me with a hook. And I just came, he threw the jab down to the body, and, you know, the first round, you're still tight. I came down, and he landed on my chin, and it felt just like somebody pulled my feet out. You know, I went down. I wasn't out of it. I wasn't rocked. It was just the weirdest thing in the world. You know, like, I got right back up like nothing ever happened. And literally after 1 second, you know, I just plopped right down, and I popped right back up. But my legs went. So,
well, that I still remember. That's for me. Now, obviously, it's you know, I'm biased, okay, because I'd met you, and you're from Youngstown. It's like the same, you know, Warren, Youngstown. Everyone's rooting for each other. So I was biased. I went to see that fight at Vernon's in Niles, not the V squared now, but Vernon's in Niles.
Jermaine Taylor, first one.
The Jermaine Taylor fight, and we were watching it, and it wasn't like a flash knockdown. It was, you know, it was like. He put it on you a little bit, right? Yeah. And everyone in the bar, and I heard people going, "Oh, it's over, it's over, it's over." Yeah. And I kept thinking, if Kelly can get up, this fucking dude is gonna be he'll be mentally decimated, because it was kind of an ugly knockout. He hit you with a couple shots and dropped you. I said, man, if he could get up, and then when you got up, after you got up, and you looked fucked up, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you looked rubber, you know. I was like, Jesus. I thought, man, if he can get out of and you got out of that round, and I looked at Vernon, we were sitting there drinking tequila, and I go, he's going to fucking knock this dude out. And Vernon was the only one. There's probably 40 people in the bar at the time in that little back room, and Vernon and I were the only ones. Vernon looked at me and goes, I think you're right. Everyone else was like, cashing, and it was like they were cashing out.
Yeah.
I was at the ITAM, and Larry said the same thing. He's like, he's coming back. He
Yeah.
got up. He's going to be fine. Because I think when you got up, Jermaine Taylor was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I think so too.
And a lot of people on that part of it, Steve Smoger. So, with that being said, Steve Smoger was the referee, and every fighter knows who your referee is at that point. And Steve Smoger is the guy who kind of lets it go. But even if it wasn't, I'm not saying this either to defend my case. When I got rocked, I mean, my legs were gone. He hit me the one time, and I ran across the damn ring. But as soon as I turned around, I like underhooked him, and I would throw punches.
Yeah.
A good referee, sees that. They know that I'm there because Smoger explained in the dressing room before the fight, like, if you could show me that if you go to grab or even throw punches, that shows me that you're still
Sure.
with it. So like when I stumbled across the ring and he went to go hit me, and I turned right around and I hooked him up underneath, and I was hitting him to the body. And then as the round went on, that second round, you could see like when I grabbed him, the punches got harder to the body, and that's when they said, Pavlik's going to survive. He's going to make it out of the round, and we did. And I got back to that corner, and I just, what I can remember is Jack screaming. And I was probably still like, what the hell just happened, But I knew that the fight, it was a new game, and that comes from watching fights too when guys got hurt. I knew that minute rest was going to be a big help. And when I came out that third round, it was keeping the composure. That's the biggest thing. People may not seem like it because I went out there and threw 100 punches.
Yeah.
But I always threw 100 punches.
Yeah.
That's just my style. That was a big part. That was big, And again, like I said, after that third round, the first round was easy. The beginning of the second round, I was winning, and I knew I was winning that round. I got dropped, and when I came out in the third round, I knew the fight was mine. They had Jermaine winning. I don't think Letterman did, but the judges had him up on the scorecards, and I still don't see it. 7 rounds. I gave him 2 rounds, which one being a 10-8, which is actually like 3 rounds, it turns out to be. So I thought I was winning that fight. I think I gave him the 5th round, maybe the 6th, and I gave him obviously the 2nd round.
Yeah, the knockdown that he had of you was then matched in the drop that you gave him. I mean, you put it on him, and I remember calling my grandfather, old school Brooklyn boxer Jerry Castellano, and I had of course told him, I'm at. He's the one that actually told me, this kid Kelly Pavlik he might have seen you fight in the amateurs. I don't even know, because he would go around to these fights. He was like one of the founding guys of the Legends of Leather, and he was on the boxing commission with Bernie Profato and all those guys.
What was his name?
Jerry Castellano.
Okay, was he with Sal Marino too?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
yeah, 100%. Man, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah.
Jesus. Anyways, I called him up on the phone, and he said, he was like, Jesus Christmas, did you see that? And I said, yeah. I said, oh my God. He goes, and I just can remember saying this, and I felt weird saying it afterwards when I hung up, because I didn't do shit, but I can remember saying, we won, and I really felt like everybody from this area felt that way. They were like, because you won, right? I mean, there's only 2 guys in the ring, and your trainers and stuff, and they all helped Jack and helped everybody. But you're the guy that did it. But I think everybody took that pride. They were like, "Fuck yeah, dude!" It was. That's still to this day is my favorite middleweight championship fight. It's my favorite knockout.
People went nuts.
People went nuts, bro. They were fucking nuts.
Yeah, it ranks up there with some of the big ones too.
It's definitely in the top 10, even if you're not from here, a Pavlik fan. Yeah. I mean, that was a fucking amazing fight.
You had to fall down and come back and whip on him.
Man, and he was big dude. He was I don't know if he was the most athletic in that, but he was an athlete, and he had fought, like we said, man, he fought world beaters, man.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, the one thing with the amateur boxing that could carry over into the pros is if you are a bronze medalist in the Olympics, you are super talented as far as natural gifted abilities. You're fast, because in the amateurs and Olympic style boxing, it's not a power game.
You
it's
get the points.
Sure. And how you get a lot of points is you're quick as shit, and you hit people before they can hit you a lot. That's the name of the game. So absolutely, Jermaine Taylor was a totally gifted athlete, and boxer. So
Well, you mentioned something. You said you were there mentally. You could still hear stuff, and I always wondered this because we'd seen you in AC and we'd seen you in Youngstown, and both those places. When we went to AC and saw you fight Lockett, it was like a mini Youngstown. It was like the Youngstown was Lockett from England? He was an English cat.
Yeah, he was from England.
So the whole arena, and obviously when you fought at the Chevy Center and any of these other places locally, like it's your hometown. And AC was like almost like your hometown. Like we saw people down there like, hey man, you're in AC seeing Kelly. When the shit's all happening with that many people, we spar on Fridays and glove it up and put the mouthpieces in and smack each other around. I can hear my coach because he's the only other one in the room, or there might be some other students, getting ready for their classes. You can hear him say, shift your hips or shrimp out or whatever you're doing. Do you hear stuff in the ring when it's that overwhelming?
Yeah, it's another really good question. It's weird and it's hard to explain. I'm sure, you could get an idea of what I'm saying. You hear the crowd when you need them. This is the weirdest thing, and I don't know, I can't speak on behalf of other fighters. This is one where, some fighters might be different than me. This is all, I think, a personal preference, but not a preference, I should say, just what happens in my head. I hear them when you kind of need them. Or if there's a little lull in the action, you'll hear them. And then there's a lot of times where you got 12,000 people, and I never heard them so quiet, because you're just so zoned in on what's going on that you're not paying attention to it at all. And it's crazy. It's crazy how the brain works. I mean, and I think about it because, a weird thing I've been trying to do a lot recently is I tried, even on social media, straying away for a little while from watching my fights on video. And because when like early on, especially before All Access, like my career, I'm not saying I'm old, but I started like right before like all this super big technology.
Sure, YouTube and all.
My pro debut and from 2000 to 2003, there was no way I could go upstairs to my hotel room after the fight and put it on and watch it. Guys today, they can watch your fight so easily, and there's so many streaming services. Yeah. So you remember the fight, how it was live. And I always did for like the first 3, 4, or 5 days until Top Rank sent in the mill the cassette, and then towards 2004 or 5 it was the DVD. But so in my head I remember how it was live, how during that moment, and it's weird. As soon as I watched the film, I totally forgot about live. It's weird. Like and a lot of people are like me. I asked that question to a couple other fighters. I said, when you watch your fight on film, do you forget what it was like live? And they're like, absolutely. Like, the only thing I can remember is what I see on film. And just recently, and I think it came down to this thing about fighting live, like the difference between sparring and live fighting is, it's really weird, and now that I've took that big break from watching my fights on film, and I'm going back to them fights, and I'm like really trying to zero in and break down, and it's really all coming back to me now. Like the sound of when you hit that person inside the ring, and like the sound of the ring and how the ring feels and how the punches feel and what it feels like on the hand with 10-ounce gloves and no headgear and hitting the head. And it's all coming back, and it's kind of cool because I could really remember it being live now. Now, as soon as I go watch that fight again live or on film, it's all going to go out the window. You know what I mean? So I kind of like it that way. It's pretty neat. So,
that visceral experience.
Especially from like a trainer's perspective. And I think that's where I'm really kind of going that route now, because I'm close to committing to being like working with some of these fighters, depending on time. And once I do commit to them, it's going to be like I said before, with anything, it's going to be kind of like an obsession. I'm going to want them to be the best. So I'm trying to put myself in all those different situations of like what the fighter's going through. Of course, I'm going to know what a fighter's going through. I have a great idea from being there, but I'm really just to help out a little bit.
Did you mentioned you were walking around like at 173, and you obviously you're dropping to 160 to fight as a middleweight. Was weight cutting ever an issue? Like, were you ever worried about, and a lot of people don't understand this, because unless you wrestled or unless you competed and there was a weight class, like if you hydrate back too fast, if you do it too fast, your body's low on sodium, you can get nausea, you can get this, you can get that. In the worst case scenario, You could get brain swelling. You could even die if you cut too much weight and then try to hydrate back, or even if you're cutting weight and then you see a lot of, my grandfather always say, like, look at this guy. He cut too much weight or he trained too hard because the guy would come in the ring and he was dry, or he looked like he overtrained. Were you ever worried about that, or did you ever think about, like, was that something that you had challenges with, like maintaining that weight? Because you're a big guy, you're 6'2". You know, not a lot of middleweights at your height.
No, some of the fights, you know, it was weird. Again, you know, getting into that part of it, especially now being in the strength, well, being into my entire life, I've pretty much lived in a gym, and strength conditioning of all different sorts was always brought into my life. And now I tell people that a lot of people try to go on these scientific ways, and that's the only time where I say science could be wrong, is because nobody knows. You know, everybody tries to find ways to break down in training and lose weight, and what happens if you lose too much weight, what happens if you gain too much weight, and I think it's all BS, and I think it comes down a lot on the individual too. Me personally, after I made weight, and I'll get into about how hard it was to make weight, but after I made weight, my first thing was, you know, a lot of people were like, you got to eat real small because your stomach shrunk and this and that, and you'll get sick. Horseshit. You're gonna tell me after 3 days of drying out, like, Kel, go nibble on some chicken? I'm gonna tell you something that's not nice, and I ain't gonna say it now because your mom will not like it.
Phil's gonna love you.
Yeah, Kelly, go to that buffet after 3 days of drying out and grab that little salmon. You know, you eat that. That's all you eat in training camp is salmon and fish and chicken. So of course I got the biggest shit I could find. Steak, protein, and carbs. Carbs was a big part, and
6 pounds of mashed potatoes.
Yeah, and you know what? And I ate like 6 bites because your stomach is shrunk and you get full quick. So that's another thing. Like, you're not going to get sick. You know, your body can only, unless you really force yourself to eat more than what, but your body tells you. So after I go to the buffet, and I would eat. You know, there was nothing, and I wasn't eating chicken or fish. I do that. Then, obviously I was stuffed as hell, and I always went, my corner man, whoever I had as a corner man, we would go to a movie. It was kind of like a superstitious thing the night before the fight. And when I got back, I had my dad order me. My dad was my nutritionist through camp, and he did a great job. And unfortunately, the fight that was the hardest to make, and I can't really blame the nutritionist we brought in. I just think it was a matter of being 28, 29 years old and being 6'2", 160. It just hit that point where I couldn't make it no more. And I'll get into that with the Martinez fight. But my dad, he would order me a pizza for that night. So carb up. It's the night before I get back from the movies, and I would eat pizza and be in the hotel room. The next morning, the day of the fight, now you got to be a little more careful, so I would have, my breakfast would be eggs. I would get some pancakes, my kind of like my last little carb thing. And then we would have a late lunch, probably around 1:30, 2, and it was just small little like chicken sandwich, on like a wheat bread, so real light and just something to get in my belly. And then we went and fought, and I was obviously it was working, and it was amazing what we did because, again, I went into the fight and I threw 90-some punches around, and I wasn't tired. So that worked, and it worked for me. So some people, they may go and they eat real small, and I've seen fighters do that, and to me, it's just, I don't think that made a difference. Some fights, Bronco McCart, it was a hard camp. It was a hard way, not a hard camp, it was a hard weigh-in. We got down 62, and we got down fairly easy. And as always, as any fight, you get there to the place where you're fighting, and you lose the last couple of pounds. It's going to suck. You dry out, and it is what it is. That fight, for some reason, it was just hard. I mean, we went to all this. They had this thing where it was like a tanning bed, but it had like water, and it got real hot, and I actually got sick in there. And we got out, but I made 160. So there wasn't many times, there was always, you knew that you were going to have a dry out period, and all fighters do. You just want to make sure that you hope that your opponent's drying out every bit as much as you or more, so that's what it comes down to. But the Sergio Martinez fight probably was, I think, the closest thing to where I could have been permanently sick, and this is not an excuse for what happened in that fight, but making weight for that was real. It was a serious issue. Thursday night. That's the night before the weigh-in. We went to bed at 166. And that's after drying out. And that's after, actually, this is all documented, so I'm not making excuses, because if anybody who goes back and watched the fight, you hear the commentators from HBO mention about the fact of being a treadmill and a stationary bike in my hotel room. We got to the point of going in the sauna. Sauna didn't work no more. We were in there for 20 minutes, and my dad got pissed and was upset that I was in there, because not even a bead of sweat was coming out, because there was nothing in me to sweat. So now your organs, you're looking at organ damage and stuff like that. So everything came down to just running and bike, and we made 160, and it was horrible. And I'll never forget, I was laying with my wife before we left for the arena, and I waited till everybody left, because my dad sometimes, man, he would I was more worried about him than I was the fight. He would pace. He was just so nervous. He hated me fighting. As I said, he didn't want me doing it when I was young. So I wait till he left the room, and I rolled over and I told her, I was like, I'm done, because we were laying on the couch, and it was a suite, and they had a big couch, and I just sat down there and laid down, and my legs, they were like off on there's smaller couches in that room. And she was there, and I had my leg, and I went to just pick my legs up, and I was like, I'm done. And she started crying. She knew, and I was like, she goes, don't say that. She's like, you'll be fine. You're all right. And I told her about the legs, and she goes, she knew. And we went to the arena, and the fight was great. The first couple rounds, he won, and I figured it out. If you go back and watch the fight, I actually had the fight controlled. I mean, the middle rounds were all mine, and I dropped them 10-8. After the 9th round, I was up on all the judges' scorecards. And then, a lot of people were playing that on a cut, and there was nothing to do with the cut. I hit the wall. I hit the wall in the 9th round. Not tired cardio. My lung, everything else, fantastic. Just making that weight. So one of the regrets in my career, I think what that fight is, and also it's not a regret because I talk myself out of it, and I'm being realistic when I do, is if I could go back, do I come in 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds and say, screw it, find me, strip me of the belts, it's my last fight at middleweight anyways. I'm done. I'm going up after this. But if I do that and I won the fight, then it's every bit as bad as a loss, because, he was a heavy guy and this. There's a lot of things on that, but that was a brutal situation there, and it had nothing to do with anything but the fact of being at middleweight that long. And very rarely do you see any fighters this day and age, or any time, stay at a weight class that long.
Right.
And I did. And I even screwed around before that. I jumped up, obviously I fought Hopkins at light heavyweight, light heavy, or right below light heavyweight, but it was considered light heavyweight. And I came back down to 160 against a very game, super good Marco Antonio Barrera, or Marco Rubio, and knocked him out. Who he 4 years later knocked out one of the top guys that was 25-0 with 25 knockouts. But I came down and demolished him. Yeah, at 160. So it's crazy how that was. But that was one of the fights where my body just said, "Hey, listen, dude, we're done. Yeah, I can't do this no more." I mean, it was hard, and we made the 160. Man, we made it by a little bit too. We came in 159.5, but it was cutting it close. So
was it difficult after fighting B-Hop at a higher weight to then go back down to fight at middleweight?
No,
not at that time.
And that's another thing with that fight, and that's documented. But I won't get into that, because people, just gives everybody the reason. Oh man, I'm full of excuses. But as another documented fight, it was not me that night. Taking nothing away from B-Hop. I mean, B-Hop's a freaking legend. He's a Hall of Famer, and what a shitty situation for me to go into that fight with. But B-Hop, that was no issue, and I wasn't shot after that. As I mentioned, that's why I brought up, I came back down, fought Rubio, and destroyed him in Youngstown at 160.
We were at that fight.
Yeah. So, and it didn't. And I was concerned about that. I'm not going to lie. Going into the training camp for Rubio, after fighting at light heavyweight like that, I was concerned. Did the body get used to that? Was that, because that's 3, so just take the month break after Gary Lockett, or a month and a half break, and then going into camp for 2 months, and then, to fight. at that point in time, and going up to 170, that's a long time for the body to be kind of comfortable at that higher weight and trying to come back down. But it was no issue for a Rubio fight. That was actually one of the easiest times making 160.
Kind of speaking about that fear thing, I just want to kind of jump back in that for a second. Boxing is the art of movement, and there's really no like heroism in the concussion or what could potentially be. And I say this because I never had the MRI or that kind of stuff, but Ray Mancini and I years ago, we're working on a film together about traumatic brain injury and concussive injuries and repetitive stuff. And I had five documented concussions. I don't know how many I had through, backyard shit or, getting into a street fight or playing football. I mean, Barry probably had the same amount, I don't know. But so I did the questionnaire. They gave you the questionnaire. I had a neurosurgeon or a neurologist give me the questionnaire ahead of time. And, I answered all these questions, and she said, yes, you are a candidate to receive the, like an MRI or whatever they give the scan to see if you have CTE or TBI. And knowing that is something that is happening. Were you aware of that at the time fighting? And was that a fear for you how does that play in, especially like after having kids and stuff and like...
Great question. I'm glad you brought that up, which if you don't mind, that could lead me into, last year, the 6 deaths in boxing.
Sure.
And some of the, I'm not going to call it asinine theories on why people are dying. I think I have a good idea, and I don't think it has anything to do with 15 rounds or same day weigh-ins or day before weigh-ins. I don't think it has anything to do with that, and I think it's actually safer the way that they do it now. I heard people saying stuff as dumb as they need to move the weigh-ins to the same day again. Talk about chances of being dehydrated, no fluid around the brain, this, that. But me retiring at 30, which a lot of people consider early and not a long career, when it was actually a 12-year career with 42 pro fights. I mean, here's how I measure when people say short career. Floyd Mayweather turned pro, I think, 96, and I turned 2000. There's 4 years, and I think he fought about 6 years or 5 years after I did. So, and he only has 8 more fights than I did. You know what I mean? That's a lot of fights in that period of time. That's a long career. Boxing is not a longevity sport. With that being said, I would say from about the age of 22, 23, and the following year, my wife got pregnant with my daughter, and it became real. Boxing became a serious issue, and even before fights, some of the more nervous things was for me that I was worried about was getting seriously hurt in that fight. And it's true, and to this day, I still worry about. I mean, I feel good. I think I talk very well, and I don't think I've been through some of the pounding that other fighters have, but you still worry about that. I worry about it like 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Sure.
So I do all the research on herbal things that are good for the brain and try to stay sharp that way. When I retired, when I won the world title, and this is true, and not a lot of people know this, a lot of fighters, they're all different. Some guys will fight to their 50s, some will fight into their mid-40s, and some, like me, like Ray and like Robert Garcia, they're done early. My whole goal when I turned pro was to make money, be financially secured. A kid from the city of Youngstown, South Side. That was my way out, and I did it, and that was my goal. And then and to win world titles, to be able, when I was older, to look at my trophy case and see a world title belt. And fortunately, I got 3 of them, and then a smaller one. That was my goal. So, like, in 2007, after I won a title, where most fighters are counting down to the next big fight, I was counting down to retirement. I was counting down to the big fights and hoping they were big. And one of the big reasons the Hopkins fight came, and I took that fight at light heavyweight, the amount of money they were offering. You know what I mean? And there was a couple other issues, like the Paul Williams fall-off fights, where I was taking a little bit of heat for that. They were saying I was ducking him. So, like, I was ducking a guy who was a welterweight coming up, but yet I'll jump up to light heavyweight to fight a Hall of Famer.
Right.
It's kind of like wiping your butt before you shit. It makes no sense. Excuse my French there. So I get a little heated sometimes on some of the things that come out of people's mouth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, it's real. Like, that played in my mind. And when I retired, the last couple of fights, first of all, I had to up and leave and go to California, which I thought was great. I did. Did I really want to leave home, leave Jack? No, I didn't, but I was kind of given an ultimatum, and I made that move. And at that time when I made that move, I was a little pissed because, like I'm saying, I'm a 3-time world champion. I've been pro for 12 years. At the end of my career, I made great money. Usually when you up and leave home to go away for training camp, it's at the beginning of a career when you don't have family, when you don't have kids, when you haven't won a world title. And I was out there, and it was cool. Like, when I got out there, I mean, it was a learning experience. It truly was, especially with the stable of fighters that Robert Garcia has. And but here, at that point, was kind of just like, it wasn't fully there.
Kelly's pointing to his heart.
Yeah, and I'll explain to people, any young fighter, in this sport, especially at that level, when you lose this and it's not 100% there, I'm not going to say 110% because there's no 110%. When you ain't got that fully there, it's a dangerous, dangerous hobby to have. It's a dangerous living to have.
Yeah.
And I can't stress that any more than what I am right now. Boxing's not a game. It's a sport. I know this don't make sense, but it's not a game. It really ain't. It's a living for most. Most people that get in this sport, this is their only option in life. You know what I mean? Like, so they take it serious, and especially again when you get to that level where they finally get it, they're going to want to keep it. And it's a brutal sport, and you got some of the nicest people in the world, but once they're in that squared circle, they're going to do whatever it takes. They'll feel bad after if something bad happens, but for the time being, while that match is going on, they're going full go. I didn't have that no more. It came back a little bit when the negotiation with Andre Ward was it was almost close to being signed. And that was like the rejuvenation I needed, man. I was like pumped about that. Nothing to do with being in California. I loved it. It was like a second home to me. I still got some James Dominguez, Roger Romo. I love Robert Garcia. I'm still close with all of them. I talk to them. And but I was just kind of done. I was tired of traveling across country for 6 months at a time, 4 months at a time. And when that Andre Ward fight canceled, there was no other big fight out there. The Super 6 was still going on. There was not even a meaningful fight for at least a year and a half. And I was done. Speculation after speculation, It's funny that all these speculations and all these things that about me, but yet I've been retired 8 years without having to throw another punch, and I own businesses and I got investments. So for all these things I did, you would think I was living in the gutter. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or in jail for like 30 years for like getting busted selling, 40 pounds of something or robbing a freaking convenience store. I was done. And a big part of that is going back to the fear of health.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And that goes into where I train my guys, and to this day and age, where the brutality of boxing, not knocking MMA. It's a brutal sport, and would I do it? Hell no. Maybe when I was fighting and I was involved, probably, I was younger, testosterone, everything else, like, oh yeah, put me in, I'm a champ, But reality, it's a brutal business, even MMA. But the difference between boxing and MMA is, first of all, training camp. MMA, is maybe 2 days contact. The other 2 days is working on your ground game. Am I right?
Sure,
maybe
yeah,
2
right.
days is kicking. You know more than me on that. And then fight. A lot of the fight sometimes goes to the ground. Yes, there's ground and pound, but boxing is where it's just totally dedicated
striking
to
the whole
striking.
time. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then another big part, in an MMA fight, a guy gets hurt, buckled, he hits the ground. It's stopped.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing. It's stopped, and rightfully so, because you could, a lot of things could happen where you get hurt. In boxing, your brain's scrambled. If you get up within 10 seconds, you're good to go.
Yep.
Your brain's scrambled, but you're good to go. And we've seen fights where guys got dropped numerous times, and they went on to fight 36 minutes, 12 rounds, 3 minutes. It was 36 minutes of fighting. That's one reason why it makes boxing more dangerous overall. The biggest issue, I think, with these fights, and if people want to help or keep the safety of the sport, it's not the fights, and it's not the same day weigh-in. It's not the rehydration. I mean, rehydration may play a little bit part, but you're talking that's very often. You know, a couple of fights where these guys died, it was nothing to do with weight. I think the issue where it comes into play is egos in training camp, sparring. Most of the people with pugilistic damage is from sparring, even especially your old timers where they sparred 70 rounds a week. Okay, I've seen more people get messed up in sparring than I did in fights. I'm talking about brutal knockouts and people getting dropped. When you figure in a training camp, 130 rounds is not unusual. Okay, and sparring is full go. Yeah, your gloves are a little bigger and you got a headgear on, but sparring is full go. And you got a guy that's doing that, just say a kid. Now, his brain's been getting scrambled at a young age before it's fully developed, and it's into his 30s. You know, all them years and months of in that gym getting pounded like that. And I think where the deaths come into play a little bit on that. So that's just where I think the long-term damage comes. I think where these fatalities and these horrible disasters happen in the ring, I think that some of these fighters are getting rocked bad in sparring. And instead of a trainer or manager coming to the forefront and saying, hey, let's go get him a CAT scan, let's go get an MRI, let's do something, let's check on him. They hush it because they don't want to put the fight in jeopardy, okay, or have jeopardy of the fight getting canceled. And they hide it. And then that kid spars. He may not spar the next day, but 2 days later, he's sparring. I know I had a couple concussions in sparring when I was in high school. I go to school the next day, and I'm sitting there, and the teacher sounds like she's talking from 4 classrooms down. The shit is real. And I think that, put the egos and quit worrying about if the fight's going to get canceled or not, and give these guys at least 2 throughout 2 training camps. So halfway through a training camp, have them go get a CAT scan. Okay, or after a bad sparring session, if you see your fighter take a couple big shots and he just ain't right, and if you're a good trainer, you should be able to see that. Go give him a CAT scan, and then of course they should get one right before the fight. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm talking, if the fight's Saturday, they should have one Wednesday or Thursday because they're done sparring at that point anyways. There's no more contact. It's enough time to get the results back in. And if the fight got to be canceled, the fight got to be canceled. What's more important, putting that fight on or a guy's life?
Right.
I think that's where these fatalities are coming from. Because I've seen it in sparring, and nobody could tell me different because I've been there, and I've seen many of world champions in Oxnard. I see how hard they spar out there. I seen how hard they spar at Southside Boxing Club, at Pat Berry's in Vegas, at Top Ranks Gym. Give these guys the testing throughout training camp. If the commission got to pay for one, and maybe the promoter pays for the other, give them 2, 3. Screw it. I'd rather see take it out of his, if he's making good money, take it out of his purse. If it's $2,000 or $3,000, I know it sucks to some of these guys to do that, but safety. What good is the money if you're just dishing it off and you ain't putting it in your pocket?
Sure.
Because you're not there to spend it. And I believe, I want to say cut the shit on all the same day weigh-in, and this and that. I think it's deeper. I think it goes deeper than that. I mean, it's not hard to get a little bleed on the brain, and that little bleed on the brain could go a long way by fight time. And sometimes by fight time, you may not detect it. Don't mean that it still ain't there. Don't mean that you still ain't got something going on up there. And then you get into these long, grueling fights with no headgear and smaller gloves, and you get beat up for 10 rounds and your brain's scrambled. Yeah, you're probably going to fall out afterwards. That's my take on it, and I truly believe that's one of the main reasons that happens in boxing right now.
Well, I got to say, and I'm no expert, just in the film that we made and learning about TBI, and it was a lot of it was with sports, but a lot of it was also with concussive injuries for combat vets, and that CTE or that TBI that boxers or anyone in contact sports, soccer players, hockey players, football players, people that are getting repetitive concussions, we know as the science has come out that those concussive injuries that are repetitive, that don't heal fully, those are the ones that last the longest, and they're damaging, and they can be. I was just watching something the other day about the G-Man.
Gerald McClellan.
Gerald McClellan. And this poor guy, And I think that's actually to your point, and to your credit for saying that, but to your point is they saw something in his sparring session prior to, and they saw something, I think, prior to the fight where he was kind of like blinking and blinking and blinking. Yeah. And, they let the fight go on. Maybe too long, maybe not, but I agree with you. The safety of the fighter. And then the other thing, too, is I think about like I don't know if it's an insurance or a pension issue or like there's no.
They were trying to do something with the all-league clause or because football you got I think retirement or pension, and all these other boxing you don't. But I don't see an overall way you can. I mean, I just don't see how you could possibly fund it with the thousands and hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of boxers. So you're telling me that you're going to fund every guy who gets boxing ain't like MMA or football. You have a guy digging out of a garbage can with a mullet, and he could just go over and get licensed by most of the state commissions. So how do you fund it? How do you protect these? Maybe if you just put it down to world champions, maybe the sanctioning bodies do it. I don't know. It's hard, and it's something that they really have to try to figure out. I don't see anything coming for that. But you're right. I mean, it's for a fighter, you're damned. Somebody just say like me. Let's use me as an example right now. If I'm still fighting, just say I'm 38, because a lot of your guys like Pacquiao, Mayweather, they fought into their 40s, and say that after a while, especially with my style, I started to my skills diminished. I still have the power. I fight till I'm 40, and I talk with a wisp now, but that's because I sucked my thumb till I was like 20. I got an overbite, If you go back, and I got nothing to lie about it. If you go back and watch all my films, I always had the wisp.
Yeah.
But if it was real bad and I was punchy, then you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you retire too early, it's always, well, you had this personal issue, or boy, he retired too soon. What a waste. And then if you stick around and you become punchy, nobody wants anything to do with you then. And oh, poor guy, what a poor soul. And nobody's giving you anything. This is true. I'm doing a charitable organization. I kept it under the radar because I never wanted credit. I do charities for people, and I love it. But even sometimes people come up, and I've had this happen actually 2 years ago. Well, you should give back. Wrong, kind of the wrong sport to say, like, all right, well, what do you mean give back? Like, who was taking these shots for me? Who was getting punched in the gut? Who was starving for 3 days? And who the hell was running 5 miles with me? Besides my parents, who was giving me money to make it to the gym and gas money? Who was buying my sport? Nobody was, and you hear all these athletes all the time. Most of your great athletes come from poverty, and you guarantee you bet anything on anybody's ass right now that nobody gave them money coming up until they got close to making it.
Sure.
And then yet they're supposed to give back.
And everybody's your friend when you're on top.
It's a simple transaction with that entertainer and spectator. Okay, he entertains, you pay. End of deal. That's the way it's been since gladiator times, right? Even before that. So you don't owe nobody nothing. Sports brings people together, but these guys, and they get to that, nobody's there for them. Probably in their heyday when they got done winning a world title, somebody probably said, hey, you should give back. But that guy sticks around another 10 years, and now you can't count his money, and he's in a wheelchair, and people are feeding him. That person that said that is not there patting the drool off his lip.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's brutal, man. It's kind of society. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And for me, that was my choice was to get out early. Again, well, he had this, you did that. That's why. Bullshit. I knew what I wanted. If I wanted to fight again, I definitely could. It's not worth it. You know what I mean? And to me, the health was most important. I want to be able to enjoy. I want to be able to tell my kids stories. I want to tell these young guys that that are fighting. I want to be a consultant to them and help them out in situations, advise them. Hey, don't do this. Watch, this guy might do this, and help them on the boxing part of it. That to me, that's more important, to be able to enjoy, and you could always move on to another chapter in the sport.
Well, I think to your credit that you got out at the right time. That you look at guys that you talk about diminished skill, and huge Roy Jones fan, right? I mean, love him and love listening to him commentate too. I mean, he's got a great career doing that too. I mean, I think that's something that you could do and do well because you're in tune to it, and obviously you're a world champ, so you know you know the sport, and you're funny and all that good
Thanks,
stuff.
man.
Yeah. Making Kelly feel good here.
Pump that chest out a little bit.
But you see a guy like Roy Jones, and he's you hate to say and I don't. Listen, man, I don't pretend to know, okay? I was a soccer player. I played till I was 35 and blew my knee out after my grandfather had said, for years, hey, what are you playing that soccer for? I'd go and it was like a cripple on Sunday at Sunday dinner. I'd play 2 games on a Friday, competitive indoor, banging in the walls and shit.
It's brutal on the legs, man.
Yeah, and it was like one of those things. I still playing around with my kid. Our kids play now. I get out in the field, I play with them. Yeah. You still have that little taste, that little feel. And I could understand how somebody like Roy Jones at the level that he fought would want to continue to have that. I don't know his financial situation. I would think he's probably pretty good. Yeah. But it's so good to see a guy like you that got out at the right time, really at the peak. I mean, after Oxnard and all that other stuff. And I think you said the smartest thing. Well, once your heart's out of it.
Your peak is 25, 26. Usually in boxing, 30 is the downside.
You're on the downside, yeah.
It's supposed to be, unless you're someone who's very few, elitist. But
yeah, I think you made the right decision. I'm curious, too, and I'm not asking you if you do this. I do it. I'll just admit it to myself, and I think that admit it out there. Sorry, Mom. In doing this research for the film, there's a lot of neuroregenerative substances out there. You mentioned herbs, right? So cannabis is one of these things, right? And you see these athletes. I figured this out about myself, I think, because I think I had some TBI issues, and that might just because I'm an artist and, you go through stages of like high highs and low lows and maybe there's some depression there or whatever, and I'm trying to psychoanalyze myself, but it's a known neuroregenerative. Do you think it should be something that's legalized in pro sports or used in treatment for cognitive challenges that are caused by concussive injuries or TBI? I mean, you think there's a place for it? And do you think it's something that, because you see like these football guys, a lot of these guys are smoking weed, and maybe it's just the culture that they're coming from, but I think actually there's something to be said where it's like they're doing it too to bridge a gap that something's happened in their neurological makeup.
I would like to learn more about that. If you ever have something to shoot me over a text on that, because like I said, I research it all the time, and it is a big, issue from just to make sure. I don't know, man. These athletes, some of these football players, they're not using it. What's that? Municipal or whatever.
Yeah, they're not medicinal smokers.
Yeah,
they're smoking to get high.
A medical card for it. But then some may, because you got a lot of football players that are just, they're concerned about that too. But that's their living right now, and you always live at your means. So they have a family, they got nice homes, and how do you keep a nice family and a nice home? You got to make sure you got that money, you make enough money to be able to fund that for the rest of your life if you want. I don't know. They gave me a hard time when I fought during the Hopkins fight. I had bronchitis real bad, and we went to actually it's how me and Robert really first met, but we didn't meet, if it makes any sense. We put his fighter was the co-main event, Stephen Luevino, for that fight, and we had to put my bronchitis prescription in his fighter's name, because the big thing with fights is you always try to hide. You don't want the other camp finding anything out, you know what I mean, because it gives them that confidence, and so you always keep everything real secretive. And the only way that we could do that was by putting in Stephen Luevino's name. So we were getting ready to do that, and we did.
Would you have like a bronchodilator and inhaler?
Yeah, the inhaler. Uh-huh. Well, here to come find out, luckily my team, like my dad and somebody else, was like, let's check with the commission before we take this, to see if it's okay, and here it wasn't okay to take because of a steroid in it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how much is that going to
Right. So small of an amount.
And if it did help you, that's probably if you didn't have bronchitis, but I'm sure whatever in that steroid is attacking what you got going on. So we ended up having to take an oral form of something, and I don't know if what that may have done. So with that being said, if they were that strict over something like that, I don't know if they'll ever allow people. I mean, maybe if they do. I don't see where anything in that could enhance your play.
Right.
Okay. If it enhances your mental awareness, all right. But mainly, in my opinion, what you should look out for is something like combat sports. And I could kind of put football in that same category because you could seriously get hurt. I think if you are on a PED, a performance-enhancing drug, I think that especially in combat, if you get busted on that, now this is just my opinion, that you should have to do a long time. You should be put away, especially now with all the deaths in boxing. That is murder. That is attempted, murder right there. It truly is. If people don't believe steroids help, then I don't know what just all they got to say is two names, Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire.
Sure, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't go from looking like being skinny, and they were always home run hitters, but you don't get to they're 40 years old and start putting out 72 home runs.
And McGuire's head became a balloon.
Yeah, they all did. And you don't go from how small they were early on in their career to looking like linebackers for Chicago Bears.
100%.
You know what I mean? So it goes to show you how much that helps. And I see it every day at the gym with lifting and powerlifting. So as far as being a banned substance, I think if there's things that can really help these athletes, not just temporarily but in the long run, I think they should allow it, something like that, because I don't think it's enhancing anything. There's nothing in it. If anything, some of these guys that do that, it's actually diminishing to a point.
Sure.
If they smoke it, it's affecting. Obviously, they're not going to have the lung capacity to run like they could. You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of them are taking it now for the pain after instead of getting on the pain pills. And as a boxer, the pain, what were you guys allowed to take after?
Nothing. Tylenol, Advil. After a fight, yeah, you could take, you could take a Vicodin if you wanted to. Before a fight, I don't know if that was in your system or what. I don't know if it's illegal or if it was prescribed, if you could get in trouble for that. Again, because it's not a performance-enhancing drug. If anything, it relaxes you and it don't help you at all as far as your performance. So I don't know. That's a great topic, and I think, in my personal opinion, I would allow it. I think that it's going to benefit that athlete in the long run if it helps for pain, and I think it's a safer alternative to the other stuff out there that they could be taking. I would rather my fighter or anybody to be on that instead of Percocets and Vicodins or Oxys, whatever else they may have. So it's a hell of a question. In my opinion, I would say yeah. I don't see any word where it puts the other athlete or fighter at risk at their health on the line. I don't.
You had mentioned about you had a tradition. I don't know if that's the right word, but you had a tradition. You could see movies before the fights.
Yeah.
And again, I say this like you're funny, like you have and you have your show. It seems like writers and boxers, or artists and boxers, artists and fighters, because there's a certain nakedness that you're on display in a sense. When you're in the ring, it's just you and another guy. There's no team aspect of it. When you're on stage or at a show, these are all Barry's works as a show. People are judging what you're doing, right? Or you're on stage and you're doing a thing, or you're in a movie, or you're writing, you're bearing your soul. This is your kind of your blood and your sweat and your tears. And Albert Camus, he was a writer. He was an amateur boxer. Ezra Pound and Hemingway used to spar each other in their apartments. Norman Mailer used to spar and box with light heavyweight champ Jose Torres. Do you have I know you do the show, and I definitely want to plug that before we sign off and talk about some of that stuff. But do you have because you're a young guy. Yeah. Like, are there artistic aspirations that are, because it always seems like there's art that's always connected with fighting. I don't know why that is, but
absolutely not. And I'm just going to be real.
And we're done.
Okay, no. I'm being
I got
really
you.
honest
here.
I would be crazy to say what I wish. Hell yeah, but every artistic point that you need, whether it be from like hands-on drawing to forming something in your head, because I look at art's a lot of things. Like boxing's an art, obviously,
for sure.
But that was a totally different art. But as far as putting things into perspective, that's how I look at art. Art to me is something that you could do on canvas, and something that you could also do from here, whether it be you into writing. So for me, it's kind of like when I try to learn Italian from my dad. You know what I mean? Like from here to here on the mouth of it, even though he tells me I speak like a hillbilly, he can understand. So I could get it out, and it's crazy, you know. But when I hear it, I can't understand it. Or like my dad understands it fluently, but he can't. He says he just can't from here to here get it out.
From his head to his mouth.
He can say something to his mom or somebody that he's close with and comfortable, and they know they could carry a conversation. But if he went over to Sicily, he wouldn't be able to, you know, talk. He would just listen. And that's how I'm trying to explain this. I have it in my head. I have no way of showing it. You know what I mean? Music, I've tried drums, guitar. I don't know if this is where you were kind of going.
Yeah,
with
sure,
that.
yeah.
I can't do that. You know, I tried like hell. Drawing, I mean, you might get a decent stick figure. There's no real way. And I know art comes in other forms too, but what I'm saying is I would love to, because I love it. You know, I mean, just everything. But I don't have the. You have to have still some form of talent that I believe you're born with for that type of stuff. You know, and unfortunately, I don't got any of that. So.
Do you think you were born to be the pugilist and the sweet science, the artist, the boxer, the world champ? Do you think you were destined for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think just through every which way that career came to be and how it ended and everything else, I think that was it. You know, and just a lot of things. It's hard to explain. Just weird things that sometimes you sit back and think on how they came to be and shouldn't have really happened, and it did. Absolutely. And I think that also, like where I'm going now with it in the sport, I believe that, you know, there's still more, like I said, another chapter in the sport, you know, move on to something different, but where it pertains to boxing and how else I can help, whether it be guiding other fighters, you know, on the business part of it, or training them, or just anything in general, you know, the podcast, where it gives super fans who wanted to be boxers but can't, they just love the sport, an opportunity to interact with a former champion, and you know, and James, and who has a boxing background. And I think people like that part of it. So I think, you know, destiny. Do I believe in that? I do, and I don't. I still believe. You know, there's other things in life, but it's crazy. I mean, if you really got to get deep into it, you know, it's almost like when I stuff that Joe Rogan or some of them football players do, because sometimes I get deep into it, you know, and you think about that, but it's crazy.
You have your own gym now, and you're going to have a boxing gym. And I haven't been to Southside for a number of years, and the last I remembered of it was really nice, because I was going over here at Warren. You ever go to Warren Boxing with like PC Torres and those guys?
When I was younger, I was just going to say, is PC...
he's working for the city. I ran into him at the water department, or paying our bill together, and we were BSing. And the last time I was in there, actually, after I blew my knee out, I went back to Warren Boxing and started fucking around with Nikolai Furtha.
Yeah.
Actually, before he fought Deontay Wilder, Terry Nikopoulos was training him, and Terry and I used to, Terry used to come see me at Rusty's, and anyways, he says, why don't you get in the ring with him and just work him out a little bit? To me, I was 35 years old. I go, dude, that guy's a fucking savage, man.
Yeah.
I'm not getting in the ring with that guy.
I had to spar him out. I was junior middleweight.
Yeah. Well, I got in with him, you know, but he says, he ain't going to hit you. He says, just move around, you know, because you're small and you're fast and quick. But that was, my point to the story, though, has nothing to do with that. But in that space, Warren Boxing, in a lot of boxing gyms that I have visited, Jack's aside, because it had a different feel. It was really nice. The smell of the leather and the sweat and you know, they're kind of like Gleason's gym and some of these other places. Like, there's a certain vibe, and you accept that Warren Boxing was kind of like, I'm not knocking it, okay? And those guys were awesome over there, but it was a little bit. It's a little shabby. It was like shabby chic, and you kind of accept that, you know. Is your gym? How's your gym? Is it going to have that same sweaty, stale, you know, leather smell, or is it polished up, man?
First of all, I want to say Nick Further was one of the nicest guys
I've
ever met.
That's true.
I wanted, you know, part of me wants it to be that like grungy,
nostalgic kind of.
Yeah, like that cave, you know, like the man cave type, like cruddy, you know,
dark and shit.
And I don't want shit on the walls. I don't want no inspirational sayings or nothing like that. You know what I mean? Like I want like maybe like a blood drop. You know, let the blood tell the story. You know, art,
prepare to die.
You know, yeah. Because you know, I have it in my fitness gym, and actually a guy today took a picture. He's a big bodybuilding guy, and cool dude. But he took a picture. You know, thoughts become things. And I had to bust his balls on that, and I was like, actually, dude, it's the other way around. Like, things become thoughts because, you know, if you see, like, $1 million sitting on the table, the money is a thing, you start thinking what the hell you would do with that money. You know, like, most of the stuff you see in every aspect is, you know, in my opinion, the way I look at it. But I'm really against inspirational quotes, and that's another thing, and people think I'm crazy about that. I don't want to see them. I don't want to hear them. I think that you need to find, because I guess I look at it like this. I'm very realistic. Just like when I train, I never train to music because you didn't fight with music. And those quotes ain't going to be popping up in your head when you got John Tomey, who's fast and strong, and he's a world champion, and his punches are 9 million miles an hour, smacking you in the face. You're not going to be like, train hard today and reap the benefits tomorrow. You know, that's not coming into play. You know what I mean? And I know it sounds kind of corny on my part of it, but I'm realistic. So, like, I believe, like, create your own damn sayings and shit like that. You know, another way, and by doing that is like the Nike slogan: just go out and do it. You know, quit the shit with all that. You know, I see it on social media. Everybody got these beautiful inspirational quotes, and they turn around the next day and they're out living like a
derelict.
Like a derelict. Yeah. Start calling them Daryl, you know. Yeah, you know, so I hope there's going to be people that are probably mad at me for saying that, but I don't care.
Yeah, they got the inspirational counter they're throwing away right now.
Live, laugh, love, shit. You're probably like slamming on the ground right now. But we all seen those ones. You know what? I got one at my house, and I looked and I tried to look away from it. Not because I'm mean, or some people are probably going, man, you need that in your life. I'm a super religious guy. Not super religious. I believe in. I try to live the right way. Am I going to joke around? Absolutely. Am I going to have profanity out of my mouth? Absolutely. But I just don't believe in things like that. Should be what I believe that you should show it.
Yeah, right.
Don't read a quote that somebody else put up there. Go out and do it. Again, I had to keep them up because the gym's not for me. It's my gym. My hard work from all the years, but you know, I got like great members, and I love all my clients and members in Columbiana. And you know, if they like it, it's to their comfortability. I named the gym my gym, not because want to brag that I own a gym. That's not the way it is. You know, it's to make them feel comfortable. Because like if I went up to you and I said, "Hey, where are you going to work out at?" You're just kind of like, you know, I'm going to my gym, so you feel comfortable. You know, instead of saying like I'm going to the body shop, you know, I'm going to my gym. And actually, for the gym that we're looking to open, my son came up with a brilliant name for it. We're sitting at the dinner table, and we're going over because me and my financial advisor had a meeting, and we're like going over the ideas for locations and stuff like that. And my son goes, "Dad, you should name up my other gym." How cool is that? So right. Hey, where are you going to work out? You going to my gym? No, I'm going to my other gym. You know what I mean? It's just like really cool, I thought. And I was like, I'm probably going to go with that name.
Where are you looking to open that one up at?
It's still to be determined.
Sure.
I'm thinking like Poland because, you know, you got to drive all the way up to Boardman.
Come on, Kel, come into Trumbull County, bro.
I may have ideas for Trumbull County.
Right,
I'm not
man.
lying about
I
that
like
either.
that.
Yeah, you know, and eventually what a gym. But you got to watch because you got some nice gyms out here too. Like,
sure.
What is the one, Global or something like that? You got that.
Global.
Because I put flyers up in there when I held the lifting meet at my gym. But you know, so those are kind of things. But yeah, I have to go back in the gyms and put those keep those sayings up so people, you know, they like them. You don't get me wrong. There's a couple you come across, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. Am I going to put it on my back window of my car, or you know, no, I'm not going to put it on my trunk or nothing like that. But yeah, so that's the way I look at it. That's my take. You guys are welcome.
On April 5th, I'm sending Kelly a poster of Yoda that says "Do or do not. There is no try."
Yeah,
that's the only one that I can even.
That's
think
pretty
of.
cool. I could do.
That's a good one, right?
Ones that get to the point like that,
right?
I can deal with those sayings.
Tell us real quick about Punchline with Kelly Pavlik, where we can find it, where people can listen. I know you have a website.
The original Punchline,
not Eddie Hearn's bullshit Punchline. Okay, I'm gonna call it out so you don't have to. Eddie Hearn, Kelly came up with the Punchline. Kelly and James Dominguez. That's their show, not your show, Eddie.
Yeah. The original Punchline, but it's the Punchline with Kelly Pavlik and James Dominguez. You can find us the best way I tell everybody, because we took a little break away from it because of the COVID and everything else. But if you go to punchline.live, it's cool because you could pull up, we keep little things on there that you could read, and it pulls up all of our past shows, and it tells you who was on the show or what the show was about, and people could watch that, especially if you're new and you just want to check out like how our show works. Go to punchline.live. We have a fight page. It's called The Punchline with Kelly Pavlik and James Dominguez on Facebook, where a lot of people and fans get to interact. We put stuff up for people to be able to debate and talk. And then we'll probably continue back on before football season on Sunday nights at 7. When football starts back up, we will be back to Tuesdays at 7. And you can find us on Facebook Live, our show, on YouTube at The Punchline with Kelly Pavlik and James Dominguez. And I believe we're on iTunes and a couple other outlets. I never really paid attention to that. Shame on me. But that's why I'm saying Facebook and YouTube.
You're too busy doing all these other amazing things. Yeah. I want to thank you for taking the time to drive down today and spend some time with us. It's been a great show, man. It's been a lot of
Listen, not blowing smoke up your butt. This might be one of the best shows that the funnest times I had, man.
Thank you, bro.
You guys were awesome.
I appreciate it, man. I hope you come back and we can maybe get deeper, maybe in season 3, about some of these other things that we touched on, because you're a real man. Not only are you a real inspiration, I say this because, and this is, Kelly catches, if you follow his career and you're from the greater Warren Youngstown, you've caught some shit, man. We kind of touched on it a little bit. Like, you've always been a salt of the earth, a real dude. I know people gave you some shit sometimes. Like, just for prodders out there and for people that are listening, Barry and I are usually smacking beers. And I said, hey, earlier today, I was like, hey, or actually a couple days ago, hey, I always want to make the guests comfortable, right? Yeah. I said, hey, we got coffee, we got water, we got modern methods down the street, whatever you want. Yeah. And as soon as he came, he was like, coffee. And I know you've been. I heard you say something this another time. Clear-headed, like, dude, you're razor sharp right now, man. And I appreciate you.
You shouldn't have brought that up though, because probably a rumor after was Pavlik was on a show slamming beer.
Well, that's why I want to bring. That's why I want to bring it up too, so people know, man.
You're water and coffee.
Yeah, you're
an inspirational
sharp,
quote.
The thing is, the way it goes. Yeah, right. The way it goes, and I'm not being. I hope nobody gets mad, but it's like the better you do, the less you could do.
Yeah.
All the people that always had the stories or seen me out, they weren't there drinking green tea.
Right.
And,
right.
It is, but at the same time, and I'm gonna be honest before I get off. Listen, did I have a little too much fun? Absolutely, man. And you are
a fucking world champion, man.
Exactly, and that's how I look at it.
I wasn't the world champion. I can tell you, I had way too much fun.
Yes, that's the way I look at it, and that's the way it should be, in my opinion.
Sure.
For a lot of these athletes, within reason, but at the same time, it was also getting a little annoying. It was a petty shit, but. So my thing was, after I retired, I was done with boxing. I didn't watch fights. I was just I'm not a spotlight guy. And I would say about 4 years after, up to about 2016, it was kind of to the point though, with all this shit in the paper, and it's kind of like, pull your head out of your ass now. Let's move, man. Let's move on to something else, as I mentioned earlier. So. It is what it is, you know what I mean? Like, I had some fun, and was the headlines great? No. And again, I wish it was something. The one incident I told the judge, the petty incident, I was like, man, you guys got to build me up, man. I was like, how am I going to go to charter school or like some places like to talk to like bad kids and be like, yeah, shot my friend with a BB gun, man. I ain't going to go over to. I wrecked my 4-wheeler into a lamppost. The kids are going to look at you like, okay, why is this guy talking? But in all reality, it got, I was having too much fun, and it was just too many headlines, and it wouldn't have ended up good. And I could admit to that. There was nothing good coming of it, because those little things could have turned into big things fairly soon. So the way I looked at it was, pull your head out of your ass, and you're not here for this reason. And of course, I got my kids and everything too, and they're the ones that will have to endure all the shit. They may still, but so I moved on, and now I have fun, and I'm still fortunate to be able to do, as we mentioned earlier, things that I want to do. I mean, and it wasn't handed to me. I had to literally work my ass off to be in the situation, and now I could really respect it and enjoy my doing. So
well, I think that's what the inspiration is, and that's how you're able to mentor people. And really, I'm not minimizing whatever, but it was a lot of the stuff that you made headlines for were kind of like piddly ass things. Like, I'm 44. I still do dumb shit. I mean, a couple years ago, Barry and I were, he's got a pool, man. We're diving on, just, you get carried away and you're having fun. But I think it's because that you've learned from that. And then you're able to, when the kid comes to you in your gym and maybe he got in trouble, he can come to you, and there's more credence in what you're saying. Like, hey, I did this too. And here's how, that doesn't have to be. Do you know Leo Connolly? Leo from Board? He's a combat vet. He was on last season. He's a friend of ours, and he was a convicted felon. Yeah. And now he is this advocate and activist for veterans and stuff like that. And he always would say, like, hey, the middle chapters of my life, that ain't the end of Leo's story, so you have to kind of go through the trials and tribulations to get to the other side and finish strong.
And help. And use that to help.
Yeah, right.
Because hopefully that person who you're trying to help listens, because you've been there, done it, and everything else. And yeah, that's true. I mean, and that's how I look at it too. That's when I was talking about going to speak to, no, it don't have to be because I didn't do this or do that. You've been through some shit, trials and tribulations, and you know what, that helps. And you could guide the young kid coming up and, show them from that, like, hey, shit could turn sour quick, just things like that. Yep, you're 100% right.
Yeah. Well, man, you are still, to this day, still inspiring people out there. I appreciate you. Once again, man, I appreciate you spending some time with us today, and we wish you nothing but the best, man.
Yes,
You've been a great guest today.
That was a fantastic show.
I appreciate it.
I'll charge you for that last 2 hours. Got it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, until the next time, be kind to one another, be cool, keep your guard up, and stay electrified. We'll catch you on the next show. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.